the Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. We cannot control what others do, but we can choose how to respond. Dr. Marni Foderaro explains in episode 14.
I knew that moment my life would never be the same. And then it was the next day or the day after, I was physically assaulted by him. And, of course, too terrified to go to the police or anything like that. In fact, in my experience, I did not always get the support from authorities because, abusers like this are very, very skilled and calculated and can manipulate and they can make you look so bad. And they've been working on that smear campaign for years. They already have the authorities in their pockets. And so anyway, I was physically assaulted. And this is the weirdest thing I think that he said to me. It was really strange. He said, "Don't you dare divorce me."
Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast. I'm your host, Sharlene Lynch from sharlenelynch.com. Healing Through Love is a social enterprise whose vision is to shift awareness on domestic and family violence within the community and support survivors and victims. Our mission is to provide family and domestic violence survivors with a soft place to land by offering advice and services available to them and their families. We interview experts and survivors who share their personal stories and offer advice to those who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on the healing journey. As well as the Healing Through Love podcast, we host an annual pamper day here in Adelaide and also Tasmania, where survivors of domestic and family violence have come together with local businesses, and it's like a day spa, basically, where they get to have all of the services for free for the day. And today we've got a very special guest. We've got Marni Fernando, and I probably got that wrong, but she will correct me. She's an award-winning writer, speaker, and educator, and a survivor herself. She's dialing in today from America, and she's going to share with us the story of her beautiful books. Hello, Marni. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
It's such a privilege. Now, it's early morning for you. It's late evening for us. And isn't it fabulous how we can, thanks COVID, connect now? It doesn't matter where we are all over the world.
Oh, it's amazing, the technology. And, so I feel like, we're just talking and we're next door, but we are miles and miles and miles away.
It's so true. Now, there's a story behind your first book and the series of events that led up to that. Are you open to have a chat about that?
Oh, of course. Yeah. The first book that I wrote, and it's won a lot of awards, and it was endorsed by James Redfield, who wrote the Celestine Prophecy. It's a spiritual fiction called God Came to My Garage Sale. And, I finally, after 27 years of marriage, got the courage to leave my abuser. And, in that, as many of your audience knows, you lose everything. You lose your house, your money. In my case, I even lost 2 adult children to parental alienation, which is just a devastating, form of family trauma and abuse. But I ended up having to have a garage sale, and I don't know if you call them that. out there, but where you pretty much have to sell things. You don't make any money, but you at least go through the process of unloading your material possessions. And in my case, I unloaded my hopes and dreams for my future. But, instead of being sad or angry, I was really in a state of love, like how I'm wired. I'm just wired as an empathetic, loving soul to look at things in a positive light. Like this is part of my learning journey. And at that garage sale, I had some miracles that happened, some spiritual miracles, that I came away with the feeling that I was loved and supported, even though I was going through the biggest life challenge and transition that I could ever imagine. And so that was the start of my writing journey. And, after I retired from a wonderful 35-year career as a high school special education teacher, 12 of those years I was in the university level as a graduate school adjunct professor. I decided, after losing everything, to just make a big move. And I moved from the Chicago, Illinois, USA suburbs to the Caribbean, where I live. So I live in the Caribbean for the last 3 years. And during that time, the writing has been extremely healing. And I ended up writing a 5-book series called True Deceit, False Love that addresses domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, parental alienation. And then, of course, you need to do the inner work, the deep dive into your own foundation, your family of origin, to kind of understand, what you've been through and how your predisposition contributes to the situation. And so we also, look into intergenerational family trauma. So that is, a little bit about my books and about my background that led me to this journey.
I love it. So you found the whole process of writing and journaling really healing.
Most definitely. Yeah, you really can kind of sit with your thoughts and, really go through things. And I think it's just very, very healing. There's so many other things to do too, that to help you get through, these traumatic situations. But yeah, I found healing or writing to be very healing for me.
So how did you get started in the journey of writing? Like, there's one thing to sit and write your journal. There's another thing to sit and write some notes and to-do lists and escape plans, if you will.
Yeah.
But how did that formulate into becoming a book? Was it intentional or was it accidental? Like, what was that process?
That's a great question. And actually, I wish that I had written an escape plan, because I could have saved myself so much heartache and so much loss. I may even have my adult children in my life if I had had an escape plan, but I didn't. I just followed my gut feeling. But, when it came to the award-winning spiritual fiction, God Came to My Garage Sale, I just was compelled to write about these experiences. And, plus I was just living in so much trauma, but with so much joy and happiness, so that was very conflicting. But when it came to the True Deceit, False Love series, I did not set out to write this book at all. And I'm not someone who actually journals and keeps a diary or anything. But what I was doing is I would be trying to reach out to learn about what I went through. I didn't even know about narcissistic abuse or parental alienation or word salad or smear campaign or all these different terms that are thrown around in this community when you tune into a podcast or read the literature, or read people's blogs or whatever. So I would just write a little note to myself, hey, look up what this is, golden child, scapegoat child. I didn't really know all of this stuff. Before I knew it, I had 100 terms to look up. And then it wasn't much longer. I had 1,000 terms to look up. And then after it got to over 10,000 terms, I'm like, okay, this is helping me because I'm trying to understand the domestic abuse I've been through. I'm trying to understand, to get inside the mind of a perpetrator, an abuser, a criminal, because that's so, foreign to me. So I ended up saying, listen, I'm going to put this in a book because there's just too many terms that I need to connect the dots to my experience. So I wrote my first book of True Deceit, False Love, and thought kind of that was that. But then the writing was just so healing. I ended up writing acrostic poetry and free verse poetry. And with acrostic poetry, you write different terms vertically and then you connect the words to them. And I found it informational and I could play around with it. I could, pretend I was the abuser writing this, from their perspective, even though that's not anything that I had firsthand knowledge of, but I could only imagine what might be going through, the mind of a perpetrator. And I also wrote from a child's point of view, or a wife or a husband, because domestic violence, crosses all genders, all different roles, grandparents as well. Even friends can be involved. So the writing with the poetry really helped. And then I did a survivor's workbook, just a tool that I could offer other survivors, other people that might be going through this, and they might find the writing could help them get all this pain and heartache out of their body and onto a page. And then actually my last book, the fifth book, because I am writing a sixth book in the series, but the fifth book is actually a word search puzzle book, just to kind of distract you. And, while you're still learning, you're learning the terms and you see those words, so you know what to look up and what groupings of words go together. But it's also kind of like a relaxing or mindless activity to do a word search. And I think sometimes when we're dealing with such heavy stuff, our lives have been turned upside down, we need to keep moving forward. And sometimes we need a little break. And so that was very healing for me. So that's how the 5-book series came to be.
I love it. So inside of your mess, there was your message, and that's led to the millions. I love it. So for the listeners listening today, everything that you're going through, you can make a difference for other people by putting pen to paper and helping others, circumnavigate their challenges by sharing your advice and your words of wisdoms of how you've managed to work through the process. I have to ask, Marni, was there one moment in time that you knew that was it, like the straw that broke the camel's back, the time when you knew that was it, you had to move forward?
Yes, there was, and I know your audience knows about red flags, to pay attention, when you are accused of lying, cheating, and stealing, and you would never do anything like that, they are projecting that they are lying, cheating, and stealing. And, many, many red flags were ignored for so many years, even before I got married. And, I just ignored them like so many people do, because, you get busy in your life, you're raising a family, you are a loving, empathetic person. So you believe that other people are too. You almost kind of project your goodness onto them. But, and then there was always money manipulation. The abuser that I was with was just obsessed with money and juggling accounts. And, I didn't realize until later after I left that there was a double and a triple, even a quadruple life going on while we were married those 27 years. So, but yes, the defining moment actually kind of took me by surprise. I was, out with my husband and one of our adult children for pizza at the local pizzeria. And all of a sudden he made some confessions with some really bad wrongdoings and unethical behavior. And actually it involved our adult child that we were with. And that to me was my light bulb moment, that the abuse had really not only really been terrible for me, and it's very covert and underhanded, obviously, and it's with intermittent reinforcement, because there has to be good times to be able to stay that long in this relationship, even though there was cognitive dissonance constantly, gaslighting constantly. But when I knew the abuse was trickling over to our child and then our children, that was it. As a loving parent, your instinct is to protect your children at all costs. And I actually went silent. My reaction was very different than normally. I'd want to talk things out and let's put it on the table and let's work together. Well, I knew I was dealing with some evil forces. I mean, it was just clear. It was finally clear. And so I went kind of quiet, but he knew, I think, that I knew. I mean, it was kind of like the charade was over. The mask had slipped. I knew that moment my life would never be the same. And then it was the next day or the day after, I was physically assaulted by him. And, of course, too terrified to go to the police or anything like that. In fact, in my experience, I did not always get the support from authorities because, abusers like this are very, very skilled and calculated and can manipulate, and they can make you look so bad. And they've been working on that smear campaign for years. They already have the authorities in their pockets. And so anyway, I was physically assaulted. And this is the weirdest thing I think that he said to me. It was really strange. He said, "Don't you dare divorce me. And if you divorce me, I'll take your house, your money, and your children." And I thought to myself, I was physically assaulted, scared for my life. But to have someone that you've been married to for 27 years say, "Don't you dare divorce me," you would think it'd be the other way around. Like, I want a divorce, or, it would just seem strange. Like he wanted, obviously, to keep that image of this perfect family, or he wanted me under his control. I was grade A supply, and even though he had many other, people on the sidelines, which I later found out, even people that I knew very well that were involved in the betrayal and the deceit. I just knew I had to go. And that's when I chose to file for divorce. I was scared to death. To leave. But one thing that your audience should know is when you leave an abuser, whether they discard you or you leave, you get the courage and have an exit plan, or not, like me, you just leave. The abuse just ramps up. It just ramps up for years and years and years to come. I filed for divorce in 2013, and shortly after, the divorce was granted, 15 lawyers or solicitors later, I'm still in court with my ex-husband. He's still taking me to court to engage me in this legal chaos, with false accusations, and it's all money motivated for him, even though it's not money that he needs. He needs the power and control, and he needs to continue to try to be a force in my life. When I've really moved on, I've moved to a beautiful location. I found love again. I have found success. It's not monetary success. Being a writer, you don't make any money. I mean, unless you are one of the, top writers, and you have a big blockbuster publishing house or something. I am rewarded not in money, but just in the knowing that, I'm following my passions. I'm living a happy life despite the efforts to try to bring me down, even by taking the children away. And it's been, almost a decade. It's at my spirit is filled with love, and I know the truth. And actually, deep down, I believe my adult children know the truth as well. And they're, because of Stockholm syndrome or independent thinker phenomenon, being in a cult, being in fear, they're not going to make the change until they might have some sort of light bulb moment of their own and get the strength to, look at the reality of it all.
And how challenging is that as the people that are around you that could have given you that support to help you leverage yourself out of this were the people that were portraying you in the process? So that makes it even more challenging to be able
Definitely, you lose your support system. These abusers have done a smear campaign on you with outright lies that are just crazy or just believable half-truths. And they will say that you are mentally ill, or you are suicidal, or you are abusive, when you're not any of those things at all. And you don't know what these people are saying. In fact, there are times I've actually heard him say to people, now don't say this to another person, just, I want you to know the truth. And because I care about you, I'm telling you something about this person, which they want that isolation and that secrecy because they're lying. They're setting a stage so that when you need your support system, you need your friends, your family, your neighbors, no one is there to support you. And you really are on your own to navigate, how you're going to get through this.
So being out the other side now,
yeah,
you were having a conversation with your younger self 10, 15 years, even 20 years ago, what would you tell yourself that you'd need to know to get through the process?
Oh my gosh, I would say pay attention to red flags. If something in your gut intuition doesn't feel right, like you're being gaslit to believe a false reality, to believe that you're not worthy, even though you're capable and accomplished and everything, they whittle away your self-esteem. I would say really pay attention to that. And when you start to realize that someone has lied, and someone has betrayed you, they don't deserve, a third, a fourth, a fifth chance. You know what I mean? You have to, I would say to my younger self, pay attention to those red flags and to those feelings and get yourself to safety and surround yourself with people that are more like-minded, that have the same values that you have of honesty and goodness and love.
Okay, so pay attention. So give that space between thought and action and pay attention to what's happening. So watch the patterns and make sure that you've got a support group around you that you trust, that are not necessarily influenced by the protagonist as well. So like a safe harbor. And then your other concept is to build your self-worth as well, so that you are bulletproof basically and more resilient to what's going on in that environment. Did I nail it?
Right, you did. And for me, writing very much helped. Actually, a change of scenery was wonderful for me. Just to kind of, follow my passions and my dreams. I love being out in nature. I love being around other cultures. Moving to an island was a perfect place for me to live out my passions. And then, you've got to be more discerning about who you let in your life or who you keep in your life, because actually when some of these people you think were supportive and had your back, they could be the people that betrayed you the most. I had a best friend that I've known much longer than the perpetrator, and the betrayal was unbelievable. And it was shocking because that would be the last person you would expect, but then you learn about being in trauma bonds with people. You learn about, that you need to protect yourself more. So I think being more discerning about who you let in your life, or even who you keep in your life. You might realize that, you're bonded, of course, with some family members, but that they don't really care about you and what you're all about and your feelings. It's all about them, or they want to keep the relationship going because it looks good to the outside, as opposed to the, following how you feel. If you don't feel, loved, if you don't feel supported in an authentic way, you need to really reevaluate some of these relationships and step back. And it's not like you're trying to punish them or accuse them. You're just protecting yourself. You're learning finally to put up some healthy boundaries. And, people sometimes, they don't mean to hurt you, but they do. And sometimes the patterns are just so ingrained in the relationship that, there's not going to be change at a certain point. But you can only change yourself. And you don't want to change other people, but you can look within yourself and say, who I want to surround myself with. How do I want to spend my time? Do I want to engage in something that's just going to be more negative? That's not for me.
It's true. Proximity is power. They say you are the average of your 5 closest friends. So, and that's easy to say now out the other side when you're in that bubble from the inside looking out. We don't have as many friends in our proximity, and the ones that we do have, we sort of trust because we lean on them. Yes, and in your situation, they weren't necessarily the right people to be trusting. So it's all very challenging. Well, that's great advice to give to your younger self. And then, of course, you've moved forward and written a beautiful book. Can you tell us a little bit about how our listeners can get hold of the book?
Yeah, well, the 5-book series that kind of relates to our conversation and what we talked about is called True Deceit, False Love, because really we all want true love. And sometimes it's unfortunate we find out that the love is false and it's the deceit that is true. So that's how that title, True Deceit, False Love, came about. And the books can be found on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and then my publisher is Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. But you can always go to my website, which is www.godcametomygarage.com. And there you can read about my books and some of the awards I've won, and some of the people that have endorsed my books, which are pretty major influencers in the public arena. And they have found value in what I'm doing. And that validation just was really nice, because actually with some of these people, I looked up to them for advice and for their research on different things so I could understand what I was going through. And then they turned around and supported me in what I was doing. So that was awesome. But I also have a happening section on my website where I post podcast videos, and interviews, speaking engagements, book signings. And then I also highlight other people's work. So it's actually a resource in itself to go to my website.
Oh, that's fantastic. It sounds like it's all come out, all roses for you in the end, living a beautiful dream on a wonderful island and now in love, and a book series and living the life that you want to live. And I understand that you've made some sacrifices along the way, especially with losing those relationships with your children, which is really very challenging in itself. Yes, and you're full of love and full of empathy, and you are really passionate about making a difference in the space of family and domestic violence, as long as being an educator as well. So that's the thing that's missing, is the education piece. Is that if we knew what we know now, would we have ever chosen them as partners to begin with? Would we?
Absolutely not. I could answer you that. Absolutely not. They choose you because you're at a vulnerable state. They choose people that have just come out of a relationship or have some trauma of their own, because, then they're in a position of power and authority, and you kind of feel like, oh, I finally met my soulmate. So you are actually a chosen person. And actually, with parental alienation, many targeted loving dads and moms that find themselves in these abusive situations where they don't have their kids in their lives, they're chosen as well, because the kids know their love is unconditional, that they are the ones that are honest and gave them the foundations they needed as kids. It's the other parent that their love is unconditional, and there's a lot of fear that goes with that.
And
so
it's true to be said also about family violence as well, that if
Right.
we knew what we know now, that
Yeah.
we would be able to call it out. We would be able to, tell someone that could make an impact. We would be able to have the conversations. We would be in a different position. It wouldn't be like the status quo. It wouldn't be the normal thing. So it is all about education, and the books that you've written and what you do with your speaking is about educating people to move forward. And when everybody knows, then everyone's going to be able to call it, and there'll be no place for the perpetrators to hide, because everyone will call them on their behaviors.
Right. The truth is exposed, and actually they expose themselves in so many ways. It's almost like you don't need to expose them because their mask slips. But your podcasts and other kind of podcasts that address these issues and we have these candid conversations, that is bringing the education awareness there. And there are some amazing researchers that are trying to bring the education to the legal system to try to help, bring enlightenment to the lawyers and judges and guardian ad litems that are actually ruining families with some of their decisions, because they are convinced by the criminals, the perpetrators, the ones that abuse. They're the ones that look calm, cool, and collected in court, when it's the loving parent that is just shocked to find that justice does not always prevail. So hopefully the education will spill over to the legal, area as well.
It's so true. So we've had a local girl here in Adelaide win a court case against her abusive partner, who's done the same thing as your partner has done to you, take her through the law courts for a very long time. And he's now been criminally convicted of abusing the legal system. So,
oh my gosh, so there's hope.
So there is hope.
Yeah.
Good lawyers and basically, if you are listening and wherever you are on the journey, can I just suggest documenting everything? So whether that's a good thing for you to do or an uncomfortable thing for you to do, pen to paper to write down times, dates, and all the details. Keep that information safe, because you might need that to move forward as well. It's been an amazing 30 minutes. It doesn't even feel like 30 minutes, but boy, can we talk. Wow. Well done, Marni. It was fantastic. And I'm looking forward to our listeners reaching out to you. We'll put all of the links, including Marni's website and where you can collect her books, both the God Came to My Garage sale and also the 5 collection, soon to be 6 collection. And it's been a privilege and a pleasure to collaborate with you during this 30 minutes. And I look forward to seeing you again soon, and hopefully we can interview you sometime soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. And I resonate with your mission that we can, through love, heal.
Thank you. And that's bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.